Welcome to the third part of the history of medicine. We're going to talk about the 20th through the 21st century. Walter Reed demonstrated that the mosquitoes carry the yellow fever in 1900. The mosquito actually carries the RNA virus in their saliva, and whenever they bite a human, that is how the virus is spread to the human. It can also be spread from human to human. Karl Landsteiner classified the ABO blood groups in 1901. This was very important in discovering why some blood transfusions were successful and some were not. Until they understood the type A, B, O, AB blood groups, it was kind of a 50-50 chance whether or not the patient could receive and actually survive the blood transfusion. Dr. Elie Metchnikoff identified how white blood cells protected against disease. This was very important in discovering how our body is actually able to fight them. Marie Curie isolated radium in 1910. She was actually the first woman to receive the Nobel Prize. She received it by discovering radium, which actually led to a lot of research in the X-ray machine and also in radiation treatment for cancer. We also have Sigmund Freud. His studies formed the basics for psychology and psychiatry. He was the founder of psychoanalysis, who made very systematic studies of the unconscious and introduced many of the key concepts that are still used in modern psychology. Frederick Banting and Charles Best, they discovered and used insulin to treat diabetes in 1922. Before then, diabetes was a death sentence because they did not know how to control it. And so by being able to isolate a pancreatic form of insulin, they actually were able to use it on a dog, a diabetic dog, as in that picture, and they were able to further isolate insulin and use it on humans. And it was actually the very first successful treatment and is actually still used today to treat diabetes. Sir Alexander Fleming, he discovered penicillin in 1928. This was actually done on accident. His lab was known for being rather unorganized, sometimes a little unsanitary. He found a bunch of petri dishes that he had left in a sink overnight. He came back and he saw this little petri dish with a big white circle, and all around that white circle, all of the disease that was on the bacteria, that was on that petri dish was eradicated, was killed. And so he was able to isolate that white dot, as you can see from that picture. He was able to isolate it and figure out that it was actually penicillin, and now penicillin is widely used today to treat many bacterial infections. Next we have Dr. George Papanicolaou. He developed the Pap test to detect cervical cancer in females. This helped the early detection of cervical cancer, which is key in fighting cervical cancer in females. Also in 1944, the first kidney dialysis machine was developed. When the kidneys are failing, the kidneys are not able to function and probably improperly filter out the toxins that are produced by the body. So the blood is filtered through the machine and then filters all the toxins out and then is put back into the body to help relieve the kidneys that are not functioning properly. Francis Crick and James Watson described the structures of DNA and how it carries genetic information in 1953. They discovered how DNA was a molecule, was a template for one another, that during cell division, they take two strands would separate, one on each other, and a new other half is built just like the other. So that DNA can reproduce itself without changing its structure, except for the occasional errors or mutations. The DNA's discovery has been called the most important biological work in the last 100 years. And the field has opened up many scientific frontiers for the next 100 years. Next, we have Jonas Salk. He developed the polio vaccine using the dead poliovirus in 1952. And then Albert Sabin, he developed an oral live virus polio vaccine in the mid-1950s. Polio is an acute viral infectious disease which is spread from person to person, primarily through fecal oral mouth route, meaning whenever there was not proper sanitation used from washing hands after going to the bathroom or drinking contaminated water, that was the main culprit of the transmission of the disease. It caused the inflammation of the spinal cord's gray matter, and in severe cases it extended into the brainstem and even higher structures, causing apnea, which means lack of breathing, which required mechanical assistance from an iron lung, such as this picture. These metal tubes were actually called iron lungs because they would assist the patient in breathing due to the poliovirus. Sometimes it would extend into the central nervous system, preferably infecting and destroying the motor neurons, leading to muscle weakness and acute paralysis, most often affecting the legs. Franklin D. Roosevelt was a person that was affected by this. It was kept from the American public because they did not want the U.S. to be seen as a weaker country by other countries, and so Franklin D. Roosevelt was often hidden behind podiums or was seen sitting down with a blanket over his legs to hide the braces that were used to help stabilize his legs after his poliovirus. First successful kidney transplant in humans was performed by Joseph Murray in 1954, and then we had the first successful heart transplant was performed by Christian Barnard in 1968. Physicians used immunosynthesis to diagnose inherited diseases before birth in 1975. Immunosynthesis is a procedure used to obtain a small amount of amniotic fluid that surrounds the fetus to diagnose chromosomal disorders and open neural tube defects, such as spina bifida. They use these testings just to help discover any abnormalities that might happen as the fetus is developing. Computerized axial tomography, or a CAT scan, was developed in 1975. This helped open up a wide range of discoveries for being able to see internal structures and any deformities that might be there, such as tumors or tissue deformities. We had the first test tube baby. Louis Brown was born in England in 1978. He wasn't necessarily born in a test tube. They took the egg from the mom and sperm from the dad. They artificially inseminated the sperm into the egg and then reimplanted that into the mother, and that's how he was conceived. In 1981, the acquired immune deficiency syndrome, or AIDS, was identified, but not until 1984 was the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, identified. HIV causes AIDS. You cannot have AIDS without having the HIV virus. HIV is the virus that causes AIDS. Dr. William DeVries implanted the first artificial heart, the Jarvik 7, in 1987. It was a great discovery, but a downfall was it had to be connected to a power source because it ran off of power in order to keep the heart beating. Cyclosporine, a drug to suppress the immune system after organ transplant, was approved in 1983. This helped significantly increase the amount of successful organ transplants by reducing or preventing the body's immune system from rejecting the new organ that was implanted. First gene therapy to treat diseases occurred in 1990, and a sheep was cloned in 1997. Average lifespan for the 20th century, 60 to 70 years. So in the 20th century, this period has shown rapid growth in the healthcare. X-ray medicine such as insulin, antibiotics to fight infection, vaccines to help prevent disease, computer technology, many causes for diseases that were identified and treated, and patients were able to treat and cure many different diseases. We also had the development of the insurance plan to help pay for health care. This allowed for a higher amount of people to receive the health care they needed. 21st century, the potential for advancement is completely unlimited. We have no idea where we might be in the next 20, 30, 40 years. Computers are rapidly changing. Communication is rapidly increasing to help spread knowledge all over the world. Lots of genetic research is becoming the future. We have the Human Genome Project, which was finished in 2003, in which they mapped out over 25,000 genes and trying to figure out exactly what genes cause what structures and what forms, that kind of thing. We also have stem cell research, many advances happening in the healthcare industry. This now completes the end of the third part of the history of medicine.